Have you ever felt like you don't belong in the traditional workforce? Like the rigid structure of a 9 till 5 drains your energy, suppresses your creativity, and leaves you feeling stuck? What if the system itself isn't built for you, but that doesn't mean you can't make it work for you? Keep listening. Welcome to the Inner Magic Academy podcast. If you're loving our videos, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks and enjoy this episode. Welcome to today's podcast episode. I'm your host, Peter Magic. Today we're going to talk about something that so many neurodivergent individuals struggle with, and that's navigating the rat race, right? Working this 9 till 5. So many of us find that working a system job comes with challenges, right? That neurotypicals don't always face, right? So people who fall under the spectrum, people who are neurodivergent, that have more of a challenge working a system job, right? So we're going to dive into why these environments feel confining and how to make them more manageable and whether it's possible to thrive without burning out. So the key question to today's podcast is, how can neurodivergent individuals survive and thrive in a workplace that often wasn't even built for them? The first segment we're going to get into is why the traditional workforce feels so unnatural, right? So the system isn't designed for us, period. Whether you're a neurodivergent or someone who identifies as a neurotypical, right? You don't experience the world as someone who a neurodivergent is, who is more aware of what they're experiencing. They're having more challenges within, those environments and the cycles and the patterns and things that continue to play out and continue to make you feel disempowered and like you're just a slave to the system, right? Because this episode isn't really about this in general, about the 9 to 5, but it is just shining light on how you can make it work for you being a neurodivergent, right? So I'll just briefly touch base on this. Us as human beings, we're not made to work as much as we do, right? So the 9 till 5 days a week on average, we're not designed to be able to sustain this throughout our life without carrying all the stresses and the traumas and all the things that we do at a cellular level. And this is why generationally we continue to pass this on, because we're not designed to be to work as much as we do. This is it's a slave system that we unconsciously continue to accept, right? And the next generations continue to accept this as normal because that's all they know. And it just isn't sustainable. And being a neurodivergent, keeping in this productive state over and over again, rinse, cycle, and repeat, it doesn't work. It doesn't stimulate our brains in the way we need to be stimulated. We need to be, more expressing ourselves in creative ways, in ways that fulfill us and so forth, right? And so I'll just leave it at that because this is going to be another episode that I'm going to share later on. But this episode is all about how you can make this work for you. Working a system job, how can you make it work for you being a neurodivergent? Because if you look at, the way it's designed, it's, through these rigid schedules, long hours, and these social expectations that drain us as neurodivergents, right? We're not designed to be able to work in the way that we do. And it's not even working a system job. It's maybe, what you've got to cope with in terms of getting to work in each and every day, if it's public transport, if it's being in all of these environments where it just drains your energy, and even before you even get to work, and then you're working in these environments, and then you're having to cope within these environments, you're having to make it work for you, and it's not designed to make you, to show up at your best and to feel like you can be the best version of yourself in that environment, right? So the first and foremost, point here is these rigid schedules and long hours and all these expectations. It doesn't work for a neurodivergent. It does not work. And so if you're working a system job, you've got to make it work for you. So the system is just not designed to work for us, and we need to change this in society. So we need to start to speak up, and we need to not just accept what employers are giving us, because as a neurodivergent, there's many people out there starting to realize they are neurodivergent, and they're starting to realize all the stresses and the things that they're carrying, they are carrying generationally. They're also carrying because this has been normalized. This is how it is to wake up each and every day, to look forward to these cycles and patterns, rinse and repeat, right? So we need to understand first and foremost that there's a sensory overwhelm happening, right? So when you look at office spaces, these offices are often full of distractions, noises, and artificial lighting. So if you think of someone who's a neurodivergent, right, they're going to have a lot of challenges in these environments, right? And it's important to start to realize that, it's just not built to work for you in the way the system is designed, right? To put everyone and cram everyone in like sardines, which a lot of office spaces are now these days, right? They're a lot smaller, a lot more confined. And it's a lot more challenging for a neurodivergent, right? And we need to start to look at the struggles that we're facing, right? So the difficulties, we've been able to focus and concentrate in overstimulating environments, first and foremost, because there's so much happening from a sensory point of view. And a lot of us do really struggle to focus and even do the job at hand, right? And we can often do so much as neurodivergents. We can, in terms of workload, we can manage, we can do these things, but within these environments, it's a lot more challenging for us. We struggle to concentrate and focus and do the job because of everything else that's going on. We're overstimulated and our sensories are going wild with all the things that we're experiencing within these environments, right? So there's also, the pressure to mask at work, to fit in with the workplace culture. And there's a lot of people in a workplace, they are wearing masks. They are suppressing themselves, and they, what's being projected outwardly isn't really what's happening internally. And we're all affected by what's happening internally at a subconscious level, at a, beneath the surface. So energetically, there's so much that's playing out. When people mask and they suppress and they hold on to things, we feel it. Being neurodivergent, you're going to feel it a lot more. And you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're not going to feel like you can fully express yourself because other people are holding themselves back in that environment, right? And you can feel like you are, if you do that, you feel like you are too much for them, right? And they normalize this. They accept it as, it just is the way it is and so forth. And we really do struggle as neurodivergents, being in these environments, right? And also, feeling confined by micromanagement, deadlines, and repetitive tasks. There's often these 9-to-5 jobs. We do have a lot of these things happening, right? And it can be a struggle for us. And we have people who try to micromanage, trying to control based on how they see things, how things work for them, and it doesn't work for us as neurodivergents. Meeting certain deadlines, always focusing on the KPIs and all the things and all the repetitive tasks that we've got to do as neurodivergents, it just drains us, right? We need to be stimulated in ways that it makes us, it keeps us on our toes. It makes us excited about what we're doing. When we do repetitive tasks, we're just constantly doing the same thing over and over again, rinse and repeat. It gets so boring. It drains our energy. And we then struggle to maintain that, right? We're not stimulating our brain in the way it needs to be stimulated and so forth. And when we're having people micromanaging us, this is the deadline, rinse and repeat, do this over and over again. It's a struggle for us being neurodivergent to have to continue to do these things over and over again because we're aware of it and we're bored and we need more things to to challenge us, to stimulate us. And a lot of the time we're doing these repetitive things, and we're not doing the things that fulfill us. We're not doing the things that we're passionate about, because a lot of these jobs, these are the types of jobs we're doing, right? Especially working 9 to 5, right? So it's important to acknowledge the struggles that we're facing as neurodivergents first and foremost. So I just wanted to share an experience of, what it's been like for me working a 9 to 5 job, right? I wasn't aware that I was neurodivergent. I wasn't aware that I fell under the spectrum of both autism and ADHD until the age of 38. So over the years, these patterns and cycles and things I continued to repeat over and over again. I worked in many jobs, and I was never fulfilled in them. It never stimulated my brain in the way it needed to be stimulated. I was bored in them, and I was often felt like I was a shadow version of myself in these environments. I couldn't really fully express myself. I felt suppressed. I felt I was, being put into this box that I never fit in. And, I'm now starting to transition out of this 9 to 5. I am still working a 9 to 5 job, but I'm working towards building this business, and this podcast is a part of it, right? So I know that it doesn't work for me, but not everyone has the passion as neurodivergent to want to create something for themselves. And so you need to find a way to make it work for you. And for me, I know it was never going to work. Now that I'm aware, and now that I know and understand why my soul put me here, and I know what I'm here to do on the planet, being a healer. I know and I understand this is my pathway. So nothing else is going to align for me, and a system job is not going to work for me. And, I really did struggle. I really did struggle in these environments, and I still do struggle, working a job during the week that I'm still working, right? Still do struggle being in these environments, and I am being a bit more open and expressive about things that I need. I'm not suppressing, not holding myself back. I'm making things work for me. And, you've got to do that as a neurodivergent. Make things work for you. And we're going to get into that next. So what are some strategies for making the workplace more manageable, right? So if you're neurodivergent working 9 to 5, what is it that you can do to make it work for you? Whether that's advocating for accommodations, requesting flexible hours or remote work to optimize energy levels, right? And since COVID, a lot more employers are allowing employees to work from home. And there's no excuses for an employer to allow this if you're in a role where you can work from home, right? And some of us, it's a lot more challenging because we have to go into the workplace to do the job. But a lot of us now, we can break these things. There are tasks that we can do from home. So, having this discussion with your employer, allowing for this accommodation so you can show up at your best. And also noise cancelling headphones. If you're in an environment where all these other people are talking around you and it's a struggle for you to focus and concentrate, having noise cancelling headphones can really help. Finding a quiet workspace, whether it's taking yourself in a meeting room, a conference room, wherever it is, away from other people so you can focus on your job, right? Or whether this is through lighting adjustments. All these things can definitely help you. And also, taking micro breaks to manage the sensory and emotional overload. Really breaking up your day. So you're getting up away from your desk, you're walking around, you're maybe getting a coffee, whatever it is, taking yourself away from that environment for a little bit, or whether it's just going for a walk. These things definitely help you just break up your day, right? And working smarter, not harder, right? Task batching to reduce mental fatigue. Whether that's grouping similar tasks together or doing them all, and doing them all at the same time, right? So, these things can definitely help you manage your workload and the things that the tasks that you're faced with. and using productivity tools that align with neurodivergent thinking, right? Whether that's visual planners, timers, all these sort of things can help you, really allow you to get organized, allow you to, focus better, right? So when you have breaks every hour, having a couple of minute break, 5 minute break, whatever it is, it's definitely going to help you, have that break that you need. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out. And setting realistic expectations for yourself and focusing on your strengths. There are some things that you're really good at that you need to harness, and then you need to be a bit more open and expressive about the things that you need around you, the support that you need around you, whatever it is, so you can show up at your best, you can work to your strengths, but then you have the support in the areas and things that you need to strengthen, and that's completely fine. Being a neurodivergent, we can't do everything. We're not amazing at everything, and there's so much going on, and all we can do is have these accommodations, these things in place, and work to our strengths. And then that's how we can be more productive in the workplace and be able to focus and do our job. And managing energy and avoiding burnout, right? So learning to say no to unnecessary tasks that deplete energy, right? Focusing on what is most important, right? There's other things can wait. And when you're a neurodivergent, when you have all these tasks at hand, it can be overwhelming. So focusing on the thing that's most important and just leaving those other things out of mind, out of your thoughts, because they're not important. And just focusing on the one thing at a time, right? Breaking it up. And using transition rituals before and after work to decompress. So it's really important, say when you're waking up each and every day, to prepare yourself for work, really to get yourself in that state, right? And being able to get in the flow. And that's important for you to, whether it's walking or exercising, getting some movement going in the morning, listening to some music, whatever it is that really gets you in the flow and gets you moving, because we can feel, being neurodivergent, we can really feel very stagnant first thing in the morning, right? We can be already overloaded before we even started that day, and it's important to get in the flow, to get moving, and winding down after work. What is it that relaxes you? What is it that takes your mind off work? What is it that you can do to shift out of work mode? Because we can, it can consume us even when we're out of work, out of that environment, because, we've soaked this all up, and there's all these repetitive patterns and thoughts and feelings, all these things that we're holding on to. And so we haven't let go of it, and it continues to play out, our thoughts and our feelings, right? So we've really got to do something to just shift out of that, right? Something that helps us relax and to start to, really regulate our mental and our emotional state, to really get in the flow, right? To release and to let go of these things, and to prioritize self-care without guilt. And this is non-negotiable. You've really got to prioritize yourself. When you're not in that environment, you're not at work, you've really got to take care of yourself. And like I said, working this 9 to 5 days a week, most of us are working our entire lives, and we're not having enough rest. We're not focusing on self-care, and we're so used to being productive, and we've all normalized this. And through the generations, we accept this. And this is why we're in what we're in, because people aren't being open and honest about how they truly feel, because that's all they've known. And so we need to start to change this, right? Neurodivergence in society really need to start to change this. We need to start to change. If you're working a system job, you need to start to really open up, because can you imagine, right, if more and more people done this in the workplace, then it starts to become normalized. People start to understand, this isn't normal for us to keep showing up, rinse, cycle, and repeat each and every day, we've really got to make this work for us. Employers need to accept that and stop focusing on the profits and start focusing on people feeling valued and people feeling like the employees actually care about them, not just care about the money, right? This is so, so important. So for myself, I really used to struggle to set boundaries at work, right? I used to be the yes man. I used to be that people pleaser. I used to do everything that was asked of me and more. And I set this high standard for myself, and I never felt valued, appreciated. I never felt like anyone acknowledged the things that I was doing. And each of the organizations I worked at, they took advantage of me unconsciously. And it is unconscious because they weren't even aware of things I was doing. I never noticed these things. And this is why I continue to change jobs. Not only was it not aligned, as we know, it's just not feeling valued and not feeling like they care about what you're doing. It's a struggle to keep showing up when other people that are in positions above you are not really focusing on and trying to change what's not working underneath you. And you can notice these things being neurodivergent. You notice the issues, you notice the problems, and you make them aware of it, and still nothing changes. It's hard for you to stay in that organization. And this is what happened to me many times, changed many roles because they kept doing the same thing over and over again. The patterns continue to play out. And I just got sick of it. And here I am working towards the thing that I want, building my own thing, because I know that system job will never work for me. But I'm currently working in a system job. And so whilst I'm doing that, I need to make it work for me. And so I need to make these accommodations and these things. I need to express how I feel. And when I see that I'm not being supported or things aren't in place to allow me to do my job, I'm going to let them know about it. And I'm going to take myself out, maybe into another workspace, away from others if I struggle to focus. And I do struggle to focus around noises and all the things that are going on. And so I make these accommodations for myself, and I don't accept anything less. And, if it doesn't work out, I'll find something else, right? And it's important that you do this. It's important that you open up to your employer and be open and honest about how things are affecting you, about the things you need around you so you can do your job. So what about those of us who feel completely stuck and don't know what to do next, right? Maybe we've tried expressing how we truly feel, try letting our employer know about, the issues and things that we're facing and why things aren't working and whatever it is. What if we've already tried this and nothing's changing? Like, what is it that we can do next? So finding work that aligns with you, right? This is so, so important, right? To start to reevaluate what success means. So society is telling us that stability equals success. But what if success is actually about fulfillment, right? Feeling like we're fulfilled in the role. We're feeling like we're not only valued and appreciated for the things that we're doing, we're actually enjoying what we're actually doing. We're not getting bored, and these tasks and things aren't repetitive, right? There's things within the role that we really enjoy doing, and our employer and the workplace in general, it feels like you're working towards something that actually matters and you feel like you're actually making a difference, right? This is so important. And finding roles that match your strengths rather than forcing yourself into the wrong environment. What are your strengths? What is it that you're good at, and what is that you actually enjoy doing? In having this balance, like working to your strengths and doing what it is that you actually enjoy doing. And alternative career paths, creative work, freelancing, part-time work with this financial balance. And so I'm going to be brutally honest here. A lot of the system jobs that we have, there's limitations as to what you can earn, right? But if you're doing something where you're working for yourself, doing creative work, like the path I'm following, it's in this creative space, it's in this healing space, but I know that's what I'm here for. There's no doubt in my mind, and it's aligned, but not everyone has the passion, or not everyone, is here to do that, and that's completely fine. But what roles and what things you can do have that balance that you need, so you don't feel like you're in the wind and grind, rinse and repeat, and you don't feel valued in the workplace. Nobody wants to go to a workplace when they don't feel valued, where they don't feel like they're doing something that's making a difference, or making them feel like, you're valued for what you're doing, first and foremost. If you don't feel like you're valued by your employers for what you're doing, what is the point? Right? It just feels like it's pointless to stay in that role. And it's important for you to really, find out what is it that it's going to work for you. If you're going to work a system job, what is it that it's going to work for you? Right? And, the power of authenticity in the workplace. This is so, so important, to be more authentic in the workplace, to not hold yourself back, but also notice when you're projecting your energy from a place of disempowerment, and place of, you're not just offloading onto others, right? And it's important for you to, in those moments, take yourself away, go for a walk, whatever it is. But then when you've been able to move through what you're going through, then have that conversation. When you're more calmer and you're not going through your emotional cycle, you're not going through those waves that can come, right? And when you're projecting from that place, it's when you're extremely overwhelmed and you're facing all these things at once. And so then you're going to project from that unconscious place in those moments, right? So the importance of being yourself instead of constantly masking, so, so important in the workplace. Even if other people around you are holding themselves back, are wearing this mask, you've got to do this. You've got to do this for yourself, because it's going to affect you. You're going to hold on to things. You're not going to be in this regulated state. And then when you're not in that environment, you're still holding on to these things. When you're not in the workplace, it's still affecting you at a subconscious level. You're still holding on to these things in your mind and your body, and you struggle as a result of that. All right. And surrounding yourself with supportive colleagues and leaders. It's so important that you feel supported by all of those around you, and you feel like that, that they are making an effort. And if they're not, then it's important for you to reevaluate. Is it worth me even being here and going through this? Because it's important that you feel valued and you feel like your voice is being heard in these environments. Otherwise, what is the point of staying there? You're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one that's, you're going to start to hold on to things, carry things internally, and you're going to suffer. And it's important for you to start looking for companies that value neurodivergent employees. So we're in a time now where people are becoming more aware that they do fall under the spectrum, right? It's becoming a lot more noticeable that they're carrying these things generationally, these stresses, all of these things in their body. And it's important that you find a company who understands neurodivergence, who understands that someone who falls under the spectrum, they need these accommodations in place. They need more of a support network around them. They need these things, all these accommodations that we spoke about, so they can show up at their best. They can do their job, right? They can actually focus on the things that they need to be doing, right? Instead of being scattered and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like they're not supported, right? It's important for you to really find a company that values these things, values neurodivergence. So let's wrap up with some key takeaways and a final action step. So the key takeaway message that I want you to take away from this podcast is you don't have to change who you are to fit into the system. Instead, it's about finding ways to make the system work for you, right? To advocate for your needs, manage your energy, and redefine what success looks like on your own terms. So one quick action step that I want you to do this week, right, is to think about one small change you can make in your work environment that would make your day more manageable. Maybe that's a 5-minute break between tasks, a new way of organizing your workflow, or asking for a small accommodation, right? Anything that is going to make you feel like, you can actually focus on your job and you feel that you have the things around you so you can show up at your best. And also, most important, is to feel valued in what you're doing and feel like your voice is actually being heard, right? That's so important. So as a neurodivergent, your mind works differently, and that's a gift. So the system may not have been built for you, but that doesn't mean you can't create your own path within it. So thanks so much for joining me here on the Inner Magic Academy podcast. Remember, your worth is not measured by how well you conform to a broken system. Keep trusting your path, and until next time, stay true to you. I love you. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode. If you enjoyed it, we'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to our channel and give us a like or even a comment. It really does help so much in getting our work out there to the people who need it. We're so grateful for you being here, and we'll see you for the next episode.